Welcome to the Full Life Coaching Podcast, where we're here to help you discover your strengths, grow in confidence, and live the life you were created for. I'm Anne Imboden, a certified strengths coach, spiritual director, and marriage coach. And I'm here with my wife, Anne.
Hi, I'm Anne. Like you said, we've been married for about 18 years, and we are passionate about helping couples build stronger and thriving marriages.
So let me ask you, when was the last time you had a real date night with your spouse? Not just running errands or watching Netflix on the couch, but really intentional, focused time to really connect.
And if it's been a while for you, you are not alone. We get it. Life gets busy. You have kids, you have work responsibilities. Everything else tends to take priority over date night sometimes. But when those date nights stop, so does the emotional connection with your spouse. And that's when couples start to feel more like roommates than partners.
So a thriving marriage just doesn't happen by accident. It requires intentional investment. And one of the simplest and the most powerful ways you can strengthen your marriage is prioritizing quality time together, or we would call date nights.
So today we're going to talk about why date nights matter and how they can transform your relationship and practical ways to make those happen, even if your life feels pretty chaotic in this season.
So, Anne, let's start with you. What is your favorite way to have date night?
I love trying new restaurants. I consider myself kind of a foodie, and so I like to explore different restaurants that are new to us or new to the area. I also like it when we just go do an activity together. Sometimes it's fun to do things that maybe we did when we were first dating, like go play around a mini golf or walk through the zoo, not super expensive or extravagant, but just fun things that we can do while we can talk and do an activity together alongside one another. I also like to go see a good movie. That's always fun for me too.
Yeah, for me, I like trying something new. It could be something new, something we haven't done before, creating a new experience, a new activity, trying something fun is new. Going out to a restaurant is obviously a lot of fun, just a chance to sit and connect and hang out together. But I like things like long walks on the beach, which are not your favorite at all. Or just
I don't like dates that involve sand in
no,
any
you don't.
way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, or just like walks. To me, a walk after dinner is really meaningful and significant time for me as well. So, but we're different, and that's okay. And we learn to work and to adapt to each other and to love each other well. And so, let's start with this question: why does date night matter? It's important because it's not just about dinner or a movie or playing mini golf. It actually builds a connection between you and your spouse. And so, what about you, Ann? Why is date night? Why does it matter for couples?
I think it's important to spend time together without the daily distractions, without the things that would normally pull your attention away from each other, whether it's your kids, stuff going on, chores around the house, sports, activities, work obligations, just to be able to step away from all of those things and just to intentionally focus on one another. I think that's so important. And that's hard to do when you choose to stay at home, because there's the visual distractions of all the things that need to get done, or there's kids interrupting, there's pets that need to be fed. It just all that day-to-day stuff can kind of get in the way and keep you from intentionally connecting with your spouse. And I think too, it's important just to remember why you're together. And when you free yourself from those distractions, to really remember to get to know your spouse and to not get complacent and go, well, I already know everything about them. Sometimes the best part of date night is asking each other questions that maybe we've asked before, but the answer has changed because we've changed. We're growing and maturing and, developing individually and as a couple. And so to continually get to know your spouse, but you have to give each other space to do that, time to have those conversations.
Yeah, and so in our podcast today, what we do is give you 5 tools, 5 ideas, 5 ways to think about how to have the best date night possible. And this is not about spending the most money or doing the most extravagant things. It's about having an intentional time together, like you just said, Anne, for us really to connect, to talk, to actually invest in our relationship. And so the first one is planning ahead. Now, between you and I, you are more of a planner than I am. I love spontaneous moments, and let's go do this. Let's turn right off the freeway. Let's go here.
And that gives me anxiety.
I know it gives you anxiety. And so I love spontaneity. It's fun, but it's hard. It's hard to pull off when it's full of work and life and schedules. And so planning ahead is really important. And so what would you say to that, Anne?
Yeah, I think well, I always keep like a running list on my phone. And so whenever we're out and about or I see things online, fun ideas that go, oh, like that would be fun to do with you. I'll just add it to my list on my phone so that when it comes time to schedule and plan our date nights, I already have a list of ideas that I can work off of. And I think too, as much as you love to be spontaneous, it always means a lot to me when you plan a date night for us because it means you've thought ahead about this. You're being intentional. It's not just spur of the moment, like, hey, we should go do something. But it makes me feel valued to know that you've really thought ahead about what would be a good way to spend time with my wife. What would she enjoy doing? And how can we connect? And that you've looked at your schedule and you have intentionally carved time out just for me. That always means a lot to me. And I think that's important. It goes both ways when I do that for you as well to say, hey, I put this on our schedule. I planned a date night for us. I got a babysitter or I rearranged the kids' activities so that we could do this. I think it just is a really good way of showing each other that, hey, you matter enough to me to make the plan and to set time aside.
So we talk about planning together, planning ahead. We're talking about not just having ideas, like you have on your list, your phone, a running list of ideas, things we could go do, but planning ahead also means putting on the calendar,
Yes.
right? And so, because life just happens, it gets busy. It's easy to look at our calendar by the end of the month and go, where did the month go?
Right.
And you do a really good job of this, and I'm continuing to get better, like as you to do. But that's put it on the calendar a month out, 2 months out. When are we going to spend some time, just the two of us together? And you're right. I know there's a big difference between you when you plan date night or date day or whatever it might be, compared to when I take the initiative to do that as well. And so yes, thank you for always taking the initiative, and I need to get better. And so husbands hear that. That's not just let it be a wife thing to do, but we need to take initiative to plan and take initiative to make a date night experience happen for in our marriage. And so planning ahead is important, both putting ideas together that we have, but also putting it on the calendar as well. And so when we actually have date night, whatever it's mini golf or movie or restaurant, whatever it might be, one of the most important things we need to do is prioritize physical touch. It's the unique thing that happens in our relationship. It doesn't happen in most other relationship, any other relationship at all. And so, why is physical touch is so important in date night experience, Annie?
Yeah, well, for you, I mean, physical touch is your primary love language. So I know that about you, and I know that it makes you feel seen and valued and loved when I reach out to hold your hand, when I put my arm around you, when I put my hand on your back, anything like that, any sort of connection just shows like, hey, I see you, and we're not just two friends hanging out. We're not just roommates. Like there's a physical connection between us, and I think it's also a good way to remind your spouse like I'm still attracted to you no matter how long we've been together. When we intentionally reach out and touch each other in some way, even if it's just a simple gesture, it reminds your spouse and it affirms any insecurities they might be feeling of, hey, they still find me attractive, they still want me, they still want to touch me. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, and so often we think physical touch is these big things that we have to do, but it's small. It could be small things, just like sitting next to each other at a restaurant rather than across.
Right.
It could be things like just holding hands or just walking closer together than walking farther apart. And so, finding ways where we're just intentionally being thoughtful and intentional on just being together and
Yeah.
being and putting time together, and not just time, but putting our bodies closer together to show love and show affection. Whatever your love languages are, it's helpful and meaningful because this is the relationship where you are able to do that the most in the most significant way. And so, plan ahead, prioritize physical touch, and then put away your phones. And that's so hard. I know I could be so guilty of this. It's so easy just to pick up my phone to check a message or check a score or check an email, and it actually I know it just distracts me from the thing I most want, and which is to spend time with you and to invest in our marriage and listen and talk and share. And so, putting the phone away, turning it over, putting it on do not disturb is one of the most helpful things we can do while we're spending time with our significant other.
Hmm. Yeah, I think for me especially that having eye contact and knowing that I have your undivided attention when we're talking to one another, that means a lot to me. To know that, okay, nothing else is more important to you right now than me and that what I'm saying. And it shows me that you're valuing my words, valuing, whatever it is I'm sharing with you. And I know, especially when our kids were younger, you want to keep your phone around because what if the babysitter calls, or even now we leave our kids at home alone. And what if our daughter, needs to reach us? What if something's happening? And I get that for parents, well, they don't feel comfortable completely turning their phones off. And Zach, you actually had a great idea of, setting a specific ringtone for your child or for your babysitter or, whoever you've left your kids with, so that you know that unless you hear that ringtone, you can ignore everything else and
Hmm.
make that the only ringtone that can get through to your phone during date night. So, as long as it's quiet, you can relax. As long as you're not hearing your phone, you know that you don't have anything to worry about. And it just gives you peace of mind. And I thought that was a great idea. It's one I wish we had done when our kids were younger.
Yeah, and our phones now have so much technology built into them. We have to use them. And
Yes.
so use the phone. And so put your phone on do not disturb. But set your babysitter's or set your daughter's phone on that they could get through. And so you don't have to worry about, the somebody, somebody can't get a hold of you, but you're putting away all the other distractions, other people, other things, other events that are going on so you can have intentional time. So use your phone to your benefit to help you engage in your marriage and not as a distraction to your marriage as well. And so the easy way to kind of try that. So plan ahead, prioritize touch, put away the phones, and try something new. Try something new. Why is that helpful for us?
I think it just helps keep things, keeps us on our toes. Like, and instead of getting complacent and going, oh, we always do the same thing. We go dinner and a movie every time, and you kind of just get bored with that, with the routine. And I think it sort of sets the tone for the date night of like, this is going to be the same old thing and it's not going to be anything interesting. But if you're doing a new activity, that tends to spark new conversation. You're doing something you've never done together before, or you haven't maybe done in a really long time. And so the conversation and the things that it brings up, the things that you end up talking about or sharing are new also. Um, and so whether it's something new or, one of my favorite things is like, let's do something we did when we were 22, before we had kids, when we were still dating, before we were married, what were the kind of date nights we did? And I love to do those things again now, 20 years later, because it's nostalgic and it's fun and you can relive like, hey, remember when we did this and remember, and to sort of remember what it was like to be young and, without the obligation of of a mortgage and children and
Right.
like, all the
Yeah.
things that come later on in marriage, to sort of relive those young, early days of your relationship. Um, and so it's fun. It's fun to do that together, but it's also fun to try something completely new and to challenge, push each other out of your comfort zone and see your spouse try something they've never done before, and to have an opportunity to cheer them on, to champion them, to encourage them, or to just look completely ridiculous, and to have a good laugh together. And that's, yeah, I just think that's fun. And it's a good way to, yeah, to keep things fresh and new in your relationship.
And it just keeps you to get to know each other. Like I said a little bit, but to lean in that more, like when you try a new experience, it creates new conversations.
Yeah.
And it creates new memories together that bond you closer together in ways if you keep doing the same thing over and over again. I think a couple years ago, somebody let us borrow their old Corvette, and we took the top down and we just drove up to the mountains, just to a small little pond. It was nothing big, but it just was fun. It was a fun way to create a new experience that we've never had before. And then we had laughter was different, connection was different because we just tried something new and different.
Yeah.
And so doesn't mean all those ideas are good ones. And sometimes you try something new or different and it totally bails or totally bombs, and that it's okay. Then you can just laugh at it. And I've had plenty of those in our dating relationship. And there's plenty of ideas that I have in my head, like, oh, this would be fun. And then I tell you, you're like, no, we're not doing that. And that's okay. But it's willing to, hey, try something new. and to see how that might enhance your marriage and just continue to increase what you guys are doing. And then the last tip we just want to remind, and we all know this, but it's so easy to not to do this, but just to be intentional with your conversations. To be intentional. This is the time for you actually to have meaningful, engaging conversation. Now, this doesn't always mean it has to be these life-altering big conversations at all. It could be the little things, just checking in or asking questions. But date night should be a chance where we're really intentionally able to listen and engage in conversations with our spouse.
Mhm. Yeah, I think when our kids were younger, one of the things I remember we tried to do was, hey, we're not going to talk about kids, our kids
Mm-hmm.
on date night, and that was really hard, But when you're in the trenches of early parenthood, like your kids are just all consuming, and you're sleep training or potty training, or you're looking at preschools, and you're worried about your kid's teacher and all these different things, and it's very easy to let that consume your conversation. And I know for me, it was really hard to remember that I wasn't just mom, I was also wife, and that role had to take priority over being mom. And so having those date nights where I had to take the conversation of kids off the table, and I just had to remember who I was before I was a mom, and you had to remember who you were before you were a dad, and that's hard, especially when you're in those early throes of parenthood. So that's an encouragement. We don't necessarily need to do that a lot anymore, now that our kids are older. But it is still helpful, like save the kids and this, let's go through our schedule, save all that kind of conversation for, when you're at home and after the kids go to bed, talk about those sort of things. But make date night about each other and about getting to know each other and asking those more personal questions like, hey, how's work really going for you? How's, you shared with me about that relationship that you were struggling with, or that, confrontation you had with a coworker. Like, how are you feeling about that now? And like you said, not just asking those yes and no questions, but like, how are you really doing with that? And how can I help you? What are some ways I can encourage you? How can I be praying for you about that? And really getting to know each other's heart and learning how we feel about things, not just with each other, but whatever's going on in our personal life. How's that friendship doing? When was the last time you talked to that friend? And how's that going? And following up, and I think that's important too.
This is what I do, and I don't know if I ever told you this before. The nights where I'm best engaged in our date nights are nights where I already have 5 to 8 questions in my head that I want to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the moment, it's sometimes my brain's listening, I'm engaged, I'm trying not to be distracted with my phone or be distracted with what else is going on. And so I'm not always always the most thoughtful in the moment in there, or most curious. And so the date nights where I come and I feel like I'm engaged the most are the nights where I have questions that I want to ask. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just helpful. It's a helpful tip for me for me to show up and be ready to engage. And so if we go back to that plan ahead idea, plan ahead. What are like maybe 5 or 6 questions that you just really want to be curious about your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes in the moment, your brain doesn't have those questions, and it just sits there. It could feel awkward sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Been there, done that. But to have some questions where you might want to reflect on your relationship with your spouse, reflect on where you're kind of at in life, or just talk about things that your spouse is interested or doing right now. And so just plan ahead and be thoughtful, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in the moment it's hard to do those things sometimes, and we rely on those things. But when our brain doesn't show up in those moments, it could feel awkward sometimes. And the silence is okay, and all that's all right. But um but just be prepared, be thoughtful, and be intentional as you lean into those conversations. What do you want to talk about? What would be helpful? What would build your spouse up? What would show them love and encouragement that you care about them? And so think about those in some ways, that as you show up to a date night, you could really be intentional about those things. And so, man, there's always, whenever I talk to couples, or you talk to people that work engaged in a relationship with, two barriers to date night always comes up. First is budget. The date night costs money. And Annie, what would you say to the couple who just says, "Yeah, that sounds great. We just can't afford it."
Yeah. Well, I mean, depending on which one of you is in charge of the budget. In our house, that's me. I create a line item. And that's part of planning ahead, right? If I look at our account and go, man, we need a date night, I need to make sure I set money aside for that. But like you said, it doesn't have to be a lot. It depends on what you plan on doing, but it does help to plan ahead so that you can financially set money aside. If you have an idea of this is what we'd really like to do together, then you might need to save for a month or whatever, or you might need to give up something that month in order to be able to take your spouse out to dinner. Um, and that's okay, and you can do that. And I think that shows that, hey, this matters, and I'm willing to make adjustments in our budget. I'm willing to sacrifice something in order to make sure that we get a date night. But to your point, it doesn't have to be a lot. It can just be going out for ice cream. We used to, gosh, when we were first married, we used to do dollar scoop night at Baskin Robbins. I don't know if they still do that, but I think it was every Tuesday night. All scoops at a single scoop at Baskin Robbins was $1. And so we'd go and do dollar scoop night, and then we'd go for a walk or something. We could walk to it from our house, or we'd we'd go on a double date with friends, and we'd all hit up the dollar scoop night. There's lots of things you can do, and like you said, Zach, even just going for a walk, packing a picnic, pack a meal from your own kitchen and go take it to the park. Bring some lawn games if you have them. We've got like a set of bocce ball and cornhole and croquet. Go take that to the park with a picnic. There's lots of cheap date nights, and remember that it's not about impressing your spouse. It's not about having to pull out all the bells and whistles. It can just be about, hey, we just want to spend intentional time together. If you can't afford flowers, go pick some from your backyard. Go trim roses off the bush in your front yard, and put them in a vase. You can find sweet gestures and ways to be romantic without breaking the bank.
Yeah, because the quality of a date night is about how much money you spend.
Exactly. And actually that can be a point of contention if you spend a lot of money on this elaborate, dinner or a fancy restaurant or whatever, you buy all these extra things, and then you're kind of like resentful, like, man, that we spent a lot of money on that. That wasn't even worth it. And it can be an issue between you and your spouse about how much money you just blew on a
Yeah.
couple hours, where we could have done that for free. We could have had that conversation, or we could have spent that time together. And you got to navigate that carefully.
Yeah. So having the right values to a date night is going to make it quality and how much money you spend. And so the second part is just time, finding time. I know we talked about this a little bit more, but what would you say to help couples kind of use time to find time to make date night happen in their marriage?
Yeah, well, at least, I mean, how it works with us is if it's not on the calendar, it does not happen. Between our schedules and our kids' schedules, we have to put it on the calendar. And also what helps us is to verbally go through the calendar, at the beginning of each month. Let's walk through, what we've got going on this month, or even just this week, and giving each other a verbal reminder of, hey, I've got that meeting, or hey, our son has this, this practice or sports activity, and just connecting with each other, making sure we're on the same page as far as what's happening. But get it on the calendar. Even if you might look at your calendar right now and go, there's no space. Well, then plan ahead. Put it on the calendar 3 months from now. The soonest you can, and make that time sacred. Don't allow anything else to shift it or bump it. If something else comes up, don't go, oh, okay, well, we can just move date night. No, you can't. Treat it like you would a work meeting, or anything else that is not fluid, and know that once you set it there, it needs to stay there. And that shows your spouse that, nope, this is important. I'm not willing to move this for something else, because you are valuable.
Yeah, I love what you said. It has to be on the calendar. I know for me, I know other couples that I've coached and talked to, they have really good intentions,
Right.
but they stink on following through. And so the idea of putting it on the calendar makes you ability to follow through and makes it happen. So having good intentions is good, and it's nice, and it gets you halfway there, but it's not enough. You got to follow through. You got to spend the time together as well, because here's the bottom line. If your marriage matters, you have to prioritize it. You just can't, you just won't stumble into a great marriage. It takes effort, and date nights are a great way to keep strong connection. So, where if you do it once a month, that's probably what we do. We're probably about once a month, every about 6 weeks. It's probably the rhythm we have. I know everyone says something different, and you work whatever is helpful in your marriage. But whatever it is, make it non-negotiable because your marriage is worth it. And so we just, as we think it back, plan ahead, prioritize physical touch, put the phone away, be intentional, and try something new, and see how your marriage might be a little bit different as you try more consistent date nights. And so, well, I hope you found this conversation helpful. Our heart is to really help you experience deeper connection, stronger love, and a full life God has for you. And if this episode was encouraged you, I invite you to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss future conversations like this. We'd also love for you to be part of the Full Life community. You can do that by sharing this episode with a friend who might need encouragement in their relationship, because we really do believe that we grow better together. And if you're ready to take the next step in your journey, whether it's through marriage coaching or spiritual direction or any other helpful resources we have, you can head over to our fulllifeforyou.com to learn more. And tell us a little about what you do as well.
Yeah, well, I'm a writer by profession, and so I have a blog called Glory in the Grind that has been public for about 5 years now, and you're welcome to follow me there too, gloryinthegrind.com. I write about marriage, about relationships, about being a woman of God, motherhood, just all the, all those pillars that we tend to stand on as Christian women. And so would love to have you follow along on social media or Instagram, or just be a part of the blog itself. So and we'd love to hear from you guys too. Tell us what's been your favorite date night with your spouse. Give us your ideas. We're always looking for new ideas, me and Zach. And so if you have a fun date night idea that you want to share with us, or something that you found to be really helpful in making your date nights positive and fun, then please share it with us.
There you go. So remember, you weren't meant just to survive. You were made to experience full life. So keep pursuing that life, and we will see you next time.